We have big news for the Hunt Hunt manga, with Yoshihiro Togashi currently working on the next 50 chapters in the manga series. So we're going to talk about when to expect them, what's going to be in them, because we do know that Togashi often likes to spoil his own manga on Twitter, as well as some very intriguing anime news. But as it almost always is, this news comes to us straight from Togashi himself, who posted, "We are currently checking and adjusting the dialogue and timeline for the next 50 episodes that will be published. Once that's finished, I plan to resume inking the manuscript which I had left off. And to avoid any confusion, episode means chapters, manga chapters, 50 sweet manga chapters. More than I ever could have hoped for, and my wildest fictional hunter dreams are currently in production at various stages, which is an awful lot, and if they all cover the Succession contest, then it will bring this arc to a grand total of 121 chapters, which is within striking distance of overtaking the Chimera Ant arc, which still sits comfortably as the longest arc in Hunter x Hunter at 133 chapters. Now, after making this post, Togashi did a couple more and has since been dormant on Twitter, which has been concerning to some because Togashi loves to share his daily progress on Twitter, and his personal account is again where we get like 99% of Hunter x Hunter news. And this is because Togashi has a very unusual relationship with his publisher Shueisha, which is that Togashi actually owns Hunter x Hunter, and he sells the chapters they're publishing and distribution rights to Shueisha, which is an incredible deal that he got after finishing Yu Yu Hakusho, and extremely unusual because Shueisha themselves own the IP rights of the vast majority of the manga that they distribute. But this is a huge part, if not the sole reason why Togashi is allowed to do whatever the hell he wants to with Hunter x Hunter. Because he has no boss, he has the freedom to take Hunter x Hunter into any direction. They cannot stop him. And he also has the freedom to be able to do stuff like go on Twitter and talk about the production process, which Shueisha would usually quite heavily police and never say anything about until it was time to make an official board-approved announcement. But that's also why people tend to get, a little bit down when Togashi disappears from Twitter, because Hunter x Hunter is his one-man show. And if he's not posting updates, then nothing's happening. That has been the case in the past. Togashi has disappeared, likely for health reasons, and Hunter x Hunter as a whole has been paused, with his return to Twitter telling us that production has started up again. But this is a completely different case, because Togashi has told us exactly what's happening. Right now, physical production of new chapters has been paused in order to spend time figuring out the story, the dialogue, and the timeline of delivery for the next 50 chapters. So if you were to put this in film terms, then this is a period of pre-production for Hunter x Hunter. And once those details are sorted out, which could take quite a bit of time, writing 50 chapters of manga, even at a vague level, is not an easy task, especially because Hunter x Hunter dialogue is much more core than most shonen series. But once that's done, the idea is that from there, it is a purely mechanical process. You have the plan laid out, Togashi just needs to sit down and draw. Which is very similar to how most other weekly manga operate, just on a mega scale. With current series in Weekly Shonen Jump, authors are usually 3 to 4 chapters ahead with writing and rough storyboards, so that in theory it should be an easy mechanical process to manifest those finished chapters. So they're usually working about a month in advance, whereas what Togashi is doing now is working literally years in advance. And as a result, we have a pretty good idea of the timeline of when to expect this new Hunter x Hunter content. But look, 50 new chapters is a wealth of Hunter x Hunter. Togashi is being ever so generous with his time and his effort, and I think that his strategy of batches of 10 chapters is fantastic. A beautiful way to budget manga for long-term sustainability, which is something that we all need to keep in mind with what little wealth we have. For example, I make videos about fictional hunters on the internet, so my wealth is not there. And that's why I use today's sponsor, Rocket Money. Rocket Money is the personal finance app that helps you cancel subscriptions, lower bills, and manage your money better. And ever since starting to use it, I have been managing better. For example, a big problem I have is money just being siphoned away into subscriptions that I forgot I subscribed to. And the ever so helpful Rocket Money can identify these recurring charges and cancel subscriptions with a few easy taps, which is infinitely easier than going through bank statements and trying to figure out what's happening, what's this, because they never put something easily identifiable in the description. But now, just like my bathroom sink, I remove all of my problems with simple taps. And with these savings, Rocket Money can analyze your spending habits to create you a custom budget and even monitor your spending, sending you helpful alerts if you've exceeded your limits. And including me, Rocket Money has helped save its customers up to $740 a year when they use all the features, with over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. So to save more and spend less, join the over 5 million members who are using Rocket Money today. Just go to rocketmoney.com/NewWorldReview or click the link in the description to get started for free. And you can also unlock many more fun features with premium. So again, that's rocketmoney.com/NewWorldReview to get started for free. And thank you so much to Rocket Money for sponsoring this video, as well as, helping me sort my life out, because it's partners like them that allow us to bring you the best fictional hunter content possible as often as possible. So definitely check them out. But for now, it's back to you. Me. If we were to publish these next 50 chapters according to the current Hunt Hunter schedule, then it would take 10 years to get them all out, because we're currently in a cycle of 10 chapters every 2 years. I don't think it's going to remain that way though, because we've seen a productivity boost in the last year unlike anything that Hunter Hunter has seen since the time that I caught up and made this channel, which was a very long time ago now, and I've aged relentlessly and unfairly. I would say that the first part of 2025 is probably going to be taken up with this pre-production process, creating this 50 chapter blueprint for the next who knows how many years. And after that, it'll be back to penning manuscripts. And the next batch will probably be published in late 2025, around the same time that we got the 2024 batch. And the reason why I have such confidence is because we know everything in the next batch is pretty much ready to go. Togashi already has the character inking completed for everything up to chapter 424, which would not be included in the next batch. The next batch would be everything 411 to 420. So everything is there. It just needs a dialogue pass and for assistants to draw the backgrounds. And just something fun, Togashi did post some pages from chapter 413 after completing the dialogue pass for that, and I can't help but spy some suspiciously Hisoka looking legs at the very top here, which is actually the very bottom of whatever this page ends up being. So my conservative hope is that we get into a cycle of 10 chapters every year, which would make this a pretty solid 5-year plan. But also, we don't know exactly how ambitious Togashi is trying to be here, because prior to what I describe as the great drought of fictional hunter content, the trend was actually 10 chapters every 6 months. So twice a year, you would get hit with these batches, which I think is both realistic and unrealistic, which is confusing to say, but let me explain my thinking. The realistic part comes from the idea that if Togashi wants to finish this arc, and if there's a whole dark continent to deal with afterwards, then 10 chapters a year probably isn't going to get us there, considering that Togashi is 58 years old and the average lifespan of a male mangaka is 62.6 years, which doesn't account for authors that tragically take their own lives. This is just measuring natural lifespans. It is such a brutal industry. And Togashi is already in notoriously not good health. But that brings us to the unrealistic part, because for this to happen, Togashi really needs to and should obviously be prioritizing his health, which I think that he has been over the past few years, although when he gets into work mode and starts posting those daily Twitter updates, his work schedule is evidently quite demanding. So just getting into a cycle of 10 chapters a year would be quite a feat, and I do hope that there's a sustainable way for Togashi to do it. And before we get to the anime news, now that we have a goal in sight, we should talk about the Succession contest itself, because prior to this, the latest we heard was that Togashi had been planning chapters up to 430, which instilled the idea that the Succession contest could be ending around there, which in hindsight is ridiculous, because it's taken up to chapter 410 just to set up all the characters. It would appear that Borkson was the final thread we needed to establish, and now that martial law is in effect, this is where we will slow down and play out the main meat of the contest. And the 50 chapter number does sound a lot more reasonable, because the palace invasion segment of the Chimera Ant arc was approximately 60 chapters. So after Togashi painstakingly set up that plot and its characters, 60 chapters is what it took to explore and conclude those stories. And as I've said many times now, the Succession contest is playing out on an even larger scale. There's at least twice, perhaps even 3 times as many characters who all have their own individual threads to play out, and a lot of stuff that we haven't even begun to explore, like Hisoka. We only got our first proper meeting with him in the most recent batch, and I'd say the same about characters like Illumi and Machi, who have only had the bare minimum of setup. And with all of that in mind, the idea of wrapping this up in 50 chapters is starting to seem unrealistic in and of itself. And we could be in a very special moment in manga history right now, as we very slowly and patiently witness the completion of an arc that eclipses even the Chimera Ants. But we were fools to think that it could ever end at 4:30. But to the anime now, as reported by Anna Rave, the Hunter x Hunter anime will be exhibited at Anime Japan 2025, which is a pretty colossal convention held annually at the Tokyo Big Sight, which is probably best known for hosting Comiket, the unbelievably massive doujin convention. But Anime Japan is part public, part industry, so it's open for both public days and business days where people involved in the anime industry get to go around and network and such. And quite specifically, it was stated that the booth featuring Hunter x Hunter would be, quote, packed with new anime information, which is very, very exciting sounding language, but I wouldn't jump the gun and point to a new anime series just yet, because I could be wrong and I hope I am, but to me this sounds like a very Japanese announcement, where they state things in the vaguest way possible to play on any potential hopes, only for the actual announcement to be something disappointingly mundane. If you've been following Hunter x Hunter manga updates for the past few years, you're probably very familiar with this. The manga is published in Weekly Shonen Jump, and a couple of times a year the magazine publishes a special sentence that says something like, huge Hunter x Hunter announcement in the next issue, which makes it sound like it's something related to the manga. It's being published in the manga magazine. It's got to be the manga coming back. Guys, we're back. But it's not that. It's almost always announcing new merch or promoting like a pop-up store somewhere, stuff like that. So I'm very skeptical about anything that's going to happen at Anime Japan 2025. If I had to guess, I would say that this announcement is probably going to be something like, hey guys, here's a new Blu-ray release of the 2011 anime with slightly different cover art, available for $50 per disc, with each disc containing 3 episodes and something like that. In case you're unaware, anime in Japan doesn't really make money, and a lot of anime series are created as loss leaders to push other products. One Piece, for example, one of the most well-known anime of all time at this stage, doesn't even make 1% of its revenue from the anime. The anime is used as a glorified ad to get people to buy the manga or other associated merch. But not every anime series has the advantage of being able to funnel people into another product. So long story less long, that's why DVDs and Blu-rays are shockingly expensive in Japan, because they have to really, really milk that niche audience for everything they've got, because otherwise anime is just completely not profitable. And this could be another one of those milking instances, although to be a bit more optimistic, I do think we are at the point where a new Hunter x Hunter anime series could realistically be made, although we may have to temper expectations and commit to something like a 24-episode series. But the 2011 anime ended around chapter 340, so there is now 70 chapters worth of material that the anime hasn't covered, which is plenty for one series, especially with how long all of the dialogue is in Hunter x Hunter. It could even be extended into 2 series. I don't know. What I do know is that the awkward part is that it would likely end somewhere after the Succession contest begins, and thus a fair bit of a cliffhanger, because I don't think there's enough material to just do the Dark Continent stuff as a series of its own and end with the Black Whale One's departure. But they could also be looking at doing a full sequel series to the 2011 anime, which began while the Chimera Ant arc was still being published, and at the time they had no guarantee that the arc was going to be done by the time the anime caught up to cover those events, which is one reason why they canned Kite from episode 1, because they didn't know if putting him in was ever gonna pay off, which in retrospect, bad move. But if Togashi is in the process of making 50 more chapters, then I could see producers gambling on that, starting the anime and doing what they did in 2011 by just taking things as they come. Although the other thing this could be, and I find this I think a bit more unlikely than a new anime series but still worth mentioning, which is that there's always the possibility of some sort of OVA covering manga-only events like Chrollo vs Hisoka in Heaven's Arena. This is probably just wishful thinking on my part, because that's something that I've dreamt of for a long time. But I've also seen people suggest that it could be a new Hunter x Hunter movie, which I think is the least likely of all of the options. The most recent movie was Hunter x Hunter The Last Mission, which I'm really not a big fan of, and it appears that not a lot of people were, because it grossed less than $8 million worldwide, which was definitely not enough to justify making another one, and I also don't think they'd make another movie without a current anime series in production to promote it with. And again, using that anime series as a loss leader to funnel people into a different product. But whatever this announcement turns out to be, I can all but guarantee there will be another anime series eventually. The keyword being eventually. As always with Hunter x Hunter, this is a game of patience, but one that I think we're going to win a lot faster than usual, and I will update you as soon as I have further information on either the manga or the anime.